All right, joining the channel is my good friend Hope Seck, fellow military.com alum, and she has just written an item for Army Times that's titled Army Test Robotic Coyotes to Defend Fighter Jets. Hope, welcome to the channel first off, and what is going on with this wacky idea?
First of all, thank you for having me. I also want to say hi to my dad, who sometimes watches this channel. I'm so excited to talk about this particular story because it seems like such a great application of existing technology in a new way. As you know far better than I do, these sophisticated fighter jets face this extremely low-tech problem, which is birds. Which, will always lose a fight against a jet, but they can do a lot of damage and potentially with deadly consequences in the process. And so as I've been learning, it is very expensive and cost and time intensive to keep the wildlife and the birds at bay. I mean, having to mow these huge airfields so that when jets take off, they don't scare flocks of birds hiding in tall grasses. And so at the crux of this story is just saying, hey, why don't we take sort of a wheeled drone base and put sort of a coyote on it? And, it's sort of cobbled together from supply stores and sort of remote controlled vehicles that they had in storage. But ultimately, this could be a really, really sophisticated thing that is not just sort of a, kind of do a programmed formation, but can build in artificial intelligence, can do all these things to really effectively keep these birds at bay.
In your story, you mentioned that they tried a higher tech version, basically coyotes that would actually walk, but those were too slow.
That's right. So I'm sure you've seen videos of the Boston Dynamics Spot robot. Those are being used by construction companies. I was just in Boston and they've got one walking around in the Museum of Science now. So these things are top of the line, right? They've got articulated legs. I think they cost like $100,000. But ultimately, they sort of walk in this staggered, robotic, very slow, very deliberate way. So they're not going to get up to, 10, 15, 20 miles per hour. And so, they would kind of nudge flocks of birds off to the side, but they're not actually keeping them away.
Right. You can just see the birds sitting there like, what is this guy's problem? Right. Like, hey, check it out, guys. Look at the dork, and they're not flying away, so it didn't work. So let's bring up the picture of these coyotes. As you said, this is sort of, off the shelf meets technology. So these are decoy coyotes that hunters would use, I guess, or farmers, right?
Mm-hmm. I think they got them from a farm or tractor supply store, basically.
Right. So, and they just mount them on these little ATVs. So are these programmed to like do a certain square sector, or are these actually driven by somebody? You can see the remote control antenna there on top of the tractor part. How are they operating these?
It's all still very much in the prototype phase. At this point, they do have the remote control capability. I believe they've been able to program patterns that they can move in. And so that's sort of phase one. And that's, great if you've got sort of I kind of likened it to a Roomba in the story where you're like, okay, go out and do this sort of shape around the airfield and don't leave the grass, but, populate this area for a certain amount of time. So that's phase one, but they're looking to really sophisticate this technology in kind of future phases, which is kind of cool.
So this is all part of the BASH program. BASH is not new. It's been around for a while. When I was working at the Naval Safety Center and safety officer in squadrons, BASH was the program. But we've tried all manner of things. As you said at the outset, particularly it's acute during takeoff and landing. And this isn't just a military problem either, except military aircraft jets go faster than commercial airliners. But if a airliner takes a flock down its intakes, you're going to have problems. And that has happened in recent years. I think that's what happened to Sully when he landed in the Hudson, right? He was launching out of LaGuardia, and he hit a flock of birds and did a great job to get that airplane on deck with no loss of life. But this is a perennial and persistent problem. Personally, I've had a couple of bird strikes. My pilot and I took one down the left wing, and it hit in and went right into an air duct that feeds the air conditioning. Didn't go so well for the bird. There was a heat exchanger in there that basically cooked the bird, and that made the cockpit smell like fried bird. Not a pleasant smell. It wasn't like, oh, chicken. No, it was not a good smell. And so we get back, the enlisted maintainers, clean out everything. It was a hassle for them to go all the way through the ducting and get it out. But that airplane smelled like that for months after that. So that's semi-humorous, but when you take one center of the front canopy, the windshield, the consequences, as you said from the outset, can be fatal. Other low-tech things have happened, and you mentioned it, like hawks. We've tried using hawks and falcons. Has that worked, or has that been not such a great program?
I saw recent coverage of hawks and falcons being used in the context of Navy submarines, actually, to keep wildlife off the subs. I do know that absolutely hawks and falcons to scare birds away from airfields. Also, I think live dogs. So if you look at the list of things that have been tried for sort of this bash mitigation problem, it's really extensive. But anytime you're introducing another animal into the mix, even a well-trained animal, there are variables and that you can't always control. And it's expensive. And you have to have a handler out there. There are all of these second and third order costs. And you've got to, in the case of the Falcons with the submarine company, you've got to hire a contractor to come out every single time. Now, so what if you had these $2,500 robots that not only, so this is the vision, not only can do sort of their programmed Roomba route around the airfield, but could have sensors that identify different species and say, this set of maneuvers will be really hostile to this particular species of animal. Or, these ones we charge straight at, these ones we kind of go around. I mean, that's sort of the vision that they're looking at right now.
Well, it's a fascinating use of existing and bleeding edge technology. Between Boston Dynamics and just lo-fi dogs and falcons, you get, these ceramic coyotes on mini ATVs. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because I'll bet we're going to see a picture of a bird perched on the back of one of those coyotes, because once they get used to them, they'll be like, these aren't real. Right?
So you're probably right. But they do go fast. They're going at 20 miles an hour. So that's not nothing.
Yeah. No, maybe I'm wrong, but it's a cool idea. And we'll look for you to keep your eyes on this particular issue, and we'll watch your reporting going forward. So Hope, great to catch up. Hope I see you in real life before too long, and hope to have you on the channel again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.